I like to say that what is a product that you're selling today? How is it going to make, Chris or Ed a hero for our little niche thing that we do? But then what is the bigger vision that you're going to market? So sell the product, market the vision, right? So marketing the vision would be, so for example, he said, I'm going to do developer-friendly security. Well, how many developers are there? I don't know, 20 million developers. Now there are 100 million, 200 million developers, whatever that is. But that's going to be my market. Every developer should be able to use that. Then he said, let me go really, really fucking narrow because I do need to zoom in and solve a particular pain. And the particular pain that he was solving for was open source. Think about all the open source packages that large enterprises use and consume. And a lot of them just aren't updated. You don't update the packages and the vulnerabilities are there and you have Heartbleed and all these other things. It's a big problem. And people have a lot of people maintaining that. And he's like, what if I could create a way? And there was other software out there like Veracode and others that actually found those problems. But you know what the problem was? If you're a developer, you would rather not know that the problem existed because guess what? You've got to go research it and fix it. And that could take hours upon hours figuring out how to research and fix it. He's like, developer friendly means to me, not only finding the problem, but allowing you to hit one button, creating a fork and fixing it right there. So now you just shift all of the security issues left so that people can build code faster, so they can solve security faster. And not only did he start with open source, he started out with Node, with JavaScript, Node.js. So really, really narrow. And what we didn't know when we invested, what Guy didn't know, what I didn't know, what we didn't know was how easy would it be for him to move to another language, to move to Ruby, to move to Java, to move to other, we didn't know. But he was already thinking about the bigger vision. He's like, all right, I'm going to spend an extra couple of months when I build out the architecture and framework in which I think will be easier.
It's extensible and you can easily.
Exactly, versus just doing the MVP thing, right? So this is kind of, there's a whole bunch of lessons, but hey, if it was MVP ship it fast, he probably would have rebuilt the whole thing and we wouldn't have been Sneak. But he actually took the extra time. So patience is needed. If I wanted to add a 6P, sometimes I think it's patience. But he did it. And by the way, no one would fund him for a while because the market's not big enough, market's not big enough.
Yeah, didn't you have to give him multiple?
We gave him 3 rounds.
You gave him 3 rounds. So that's a good thing to zoom in on.
Yeah.
Like, what made you triple down before you'd even gotten to the A? And I imagine before you even hit a few million in revenue.
Oh yeah.
Like 3 rounds, you keep deploying capital. How do you know when to deploy and when to just say enough's enough?
That's a great question. So I think this also ties into what are the early signs that you see that will allow you to believe that this will be a successful company that are within the founder's control versus the market control. Because, let's say, for example, that Protect AI could have done everything right, but if the market didn't come around, we'd still be out there kind of cranking along, which is fun. Like, eventually it would come around, right? But what we saw in the second round was, man, holy shit. Guy brought together, 7 or 8 amazing engineers, and the dude was just shipping product like crazy. So we could already see the open source download traction happening. We could see people using it repeatedly, but there was no revenue. So the third check was basically like, man, there's an inflection point. We have all these downloads, but we're running out of money. And in order to get the next round done, because people didn't believe in the opportunity, we need revenue. And so he was about to sign his first customer for like, $30K. And he didn't have a signed contract, so no one would fund him. We're like, oh, this is going to happen, right? And we also saw the pipeline behind it of 5 others. And that was when we gave the third check. And also people are actually trying to acquire him too. So we're like, okay. So, and we're helping with some of that. And so that was the third check. And so he basically skipped it from us working with him until kind of the A round was, done with Excel London at the time. He built the company out of London and Israel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we were based out of New York. So this once again is, I think you're talking about like the first company that he started was in Canada. And then this was in London, Israel. People are like, how do you do inception investing out of New York when in all these places? Well, you get in a plane, you travel, you spend a lot of time with the founder. They also come back to New York as well, because guess what? The one thing about New York is really interesting at the time was that it had the largest concentration of Fortune 500 kind of companies there. So everyone's kind of coming there and selling into the IT department. You find ways to do, we'll call it long distance dating. That's what I view it as, because it gets very intense for 2 or 3 days. Like, for example, we just funded a new company out of London and Vancouver. And then the last 4 days, the founders flew into Miami, because guess what? Vancouver, London, why not come to Miami? So we had some intense sessions together, long distance dating. We'll do it again in a few months, right? So anyway, so that was kind of the story behind the 3 rounds before we got to. But fast forward, as I said, it's a sizable ARR business growing very quickly in a very important space and category. So we haven't monetized it yet, but the coolest part for me on that journey is to be on the board from inception and still on the board now.
In that journey.
And just watch, and Guy now has started a new company And guess what? We were fortunate enough to fund that one too at inception.
Yeah.
And so he hasn't fully announced it yet, but he did say like us and GV were the leads in that.
Very cool.
So more to come. But anyway, these are long journeys. You build relationships with people. It goes back to the people relationship. And I hope founders actually build relationships with their investors too. It's not about the highest valuation. It's not about the highest price. It's like you want to pick up the phone at 8 o'clock on a Saturday if there's an issue and like the person that you're talking to, right?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
I would hope that founders not just choose the brand name, but choose the person. And think about it as not just this company, because, you know, a 28-year-old, 35-year-old founder is probably going to have a couple of swings at the plate. So I'd hope they also think about their journey together. Like, is this person going to be with me over time? You know, am I going to build a relationship with them? So I think that's important too.
I'm curious, as an investor, how important is it to look at that early round, whether it's like a 20 million post, 30 million, 40 million? If it's a great founder and you believe in the company, do you have hard rules about what you'll invest at that stage in terms of post valuation? Or like, is it just kind of, because it has an implication on your multiples fairly significantly, but do you like, is that a pretty big factor for you, or?
I'd say it is and it isn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think rules are meant to be broken, frankly. And I also think you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And so look, what if I passed on Protect AI at that round, a $10 million round? So this, once again, was a very important question for us at Boldstart, which I think will be a very important question for anyone that does quote unquote seed.
Yeah.
Is do I want to play that game, which is the multi-stage game? The multi-stage game is 6 million and above. And how many checks of those can I write? And can I do pro rata in those? We made a conscious decision to play that game. And, you know, knock on wood, I would hope that, you know, we have a pretty good ability to pass on the thing. Look, we see tons of those, but we only write a few of those.
Right.
Just to be clear, of the
Very
jumbos.
selectively.
But when I do write the jumbo, I do want to make sure that my fund is big enough to lead or co-lead those rounds and get ownership. So for me, it's about the ownership aspect.
Right.
When I look at the overall portfolio itself, you got to ask yourself the question, is my portfolio better off having these rockstar founders who I perceive as rockstar founders raising $10 million rounds at a higher price or not? I would believe that if I'm going to write a check in a bigger check, that the outcome is going to be potentially bigger too.
Right. Exactly.
So I have to believe that.